Hi everyone, welcome again to Gourmet Gagee. And today we're going to make stuffed cabbage. In order to make this, I have 3 pounds of ground chuck, 2 eggs, a head of cabbage, 2 cans of tomato soup, a can of tomato sauce, a can of tomato paste, Bavarian style sauerkraut, rice, and I'll be using a package of beefy onion and a little bit of water to soften it up so that the stuffed cabbages aren't hard. So I will first cook my cabbage. First I have to take the center out and core it, and then I'll put it in the pot and let it boil and take a leaf off at a time. So we'll be seeing you in a minute. Now while the water is heating, I'm going to core the cabbage. And once the water is boiling, then I'll put the cabbage in to start to cook. So cut this down as far as you can, and you kind of get it there too. And then you cut it around. Whoops. That's okay. And you cut it around there. Get that one out. Get this one out. They're giving me a hard time today, but the cabbage is very fresh. There we go. And then down a little further. And now I get as much of the core out as I possibly can. It's not such an easy thing, but it does come out eventually. And once it's out, then I'll put it on to cook. There we go. Now while my large pot of water is heating till it comes to a boil, I'm also going to take my rice, rinse it, and then I will cook it also. And it's 1 cup of raw rice. And of course, rice probably about triples in size. And I rinse it with cold water first. So I rinse the rice in some water, and then I will drain it before I cook it in more water. Now I'm cooking my rice until it's soft. Then I will drain it and I will combine it with the ground meat. Hi, my water has come to a boil, so now I'm going to put the cabbage into the pot carefully. And I will cover it because it'll help to cook the outside leaf first. Okay, now I'm starting to remove some of the cabbage leaves, and I have to see which ones are soft and take them off. And after I get these soft ones off, I'll turn it over to let it cook from the inside because that's the hardest part. The top cooks quickly. And now I'll cover it again. And now we'll take care of our rice. The rice is cooked for about 10 minutes and it's ready to be drained. Okay, so here's the cooked rice, and now I'm going to drain it. Never put raw rice in mixed with the ground meat because it just doesn't get done. Just imagine, all of this is 1 cup of raw rice. Now I'm just going to mix it around a little bit to make sure the water gets out of it. Not that it's all that important because you're still going to put water into the mix, but it's best to get it out and let it cool down. Now I take the leaves off little by little. I cover it, I take a few off, I cover it again, take a few more off. And it works best that way. See, here comes another one. Smaller, but fine. Gotta cook some more. Okay, now I've pulled off the cabbage leaves that will work for me, but now we're getting too small. So what I'm going to do with this is I'll chop it up and I'll put it in between the layers of the cabbage as it cooks. Nothing goes to waste. Okay, now I have 3 pounds of ground chuck, and I'm going to sprinkle a package of beefy onion soup into it. It really works well. Then I'm going to add the rice. See how much rice 1 cup makes? And I will mix that by hand. And then I'm going to add 2 eggs and a cup of water, because the water helps to keep the stuffed cabbages from being very hard. Okay, now we're just going to mix it by hand. Okay, now I've added a little pepper. It doesn't need salt because the beefy onion soup has enough salt in it. But pepper, you can always use. Now there's about a 1/3 pot of hot water in here, and I've added some tomato paste, and I'm going to add a little bit of these. It was the part that I couldn't use anymore on the bottom so that it doesn't stick. And now we will get ready to fill the cabbage leaves with our mixture. Okay, now before I put the filling into the cabbage leaves, see this harder vein? Well, you take your knife and you kind of cut it like that to trim it down, and it makes it easier to roll. So I will show you how I do the first few. This is, I would say that's about a 1/3 half of a cup, an ice cream scooper. And you put it in there, and you go like this, and you kind of fold it around, and you roll it over, and there it is. Now, I will only make maybe 6 or 8 of these, and I'll put them into the hot water, and here's why. If you make them up and let them set aside, there's a chemical reaction between the cabbage and the meat. And even though the meat is cooked, it will look red. So that's why you have to put it into something hot as soon as you make a few of them. I already cut those. Years ago, my aunt was a nun, and I went up to her convent. They had a festival every year. And I stayed overnight for a couple nights, and I helped the nuns. I made the mix, and all the little nuns had to roll them, and then we put them into Westinghouse roasters, and we made 2,500 stuffed cabbages. Now, I poured out some of the water. This is maybe a 1/4 full because you don't want the stuffed cabbages to swim in them. You just want it hot, and you want to get them in there. Now I'm going to add maybe a third of the can of tomato soup. And now the stuffed cabbages. Okay, now I'm going back to make some more. Okay, now I'm going to add a little bit of tomato sauce. And remember, when I cut the veins off the cabbage, I saved them and I put them in there because nothing goes to waste. And now I'm adding more cabbage rolls. Now this is the third layer in this pot, so there are 8, 16, 24 in here. And I'm going to add more of the tomatoes and more sauerkraut. I'm going to add more sauerkraut. This is Bavarian style. It's a sweet sauerkraut. It has caraway seeds in it so you don't get gas. But again, you want to put it in on the side where it's hot because you don't want it to make the cabbage kind of corky. I layered the Bavarian sauerkraut in between the cabbage rolls also. Just a little bit more, about a half a can into this pot. And I'll put a little more tomato soup over it. And the cover goes back on and it's ready to cook. Now, at some point, the water will be coming out. Do not get rid of it. Ladle it into another container because once the cabbage rolls are done, it sucks this water back out. Okay, now this is what I meant about it boiling over. So you don't want to lose that water. So what I'll do is I'll just ladle some of it out into this bowl and it will suck it up later on. But for now, we put it in here. And when it's finished, we'll go back in. Now it's boiling, and how do you know when it's done? Well, you take a fork and you put it in the cabbage, and if it doesn't go through, it's got a lot longer to cook. It probably cooks half hour to 45 minutes till it reaches that point. So it gets covered back up. Hi, I'm checking these. And we've been cooking them about half an hour. I would say they need maybe another 15 minutes. A lot of it depends upon how many you have in the pot, how thick the cabbage might be, but you can tell when you put a fork in the cabbage, if it feels soft, it's done. So I would say these need about another 15 minutes. Okay, now I'm going to test them, and I put the fork in and see how easily it goes into the cabbage, so that proves that it's done. Now, what I will make is what we call sauerkraut, or a roux. I will show you how to do that in the next film. I melted a half a stick of butter to make the sauerkraut, or roux, whichever way you want to call it. So I melted the butter, and now I'm going to gradually add some flour. I would say that's maybe 1/4 cup of flour. Now that I added what I think is enough of flour, you always have to, no matter what you do with flour, it has to be cooked because it's raw. And now I'm going to add the juice that I took out of the stuffed cabbages. And I might need more. And I do. And then I will add this to the pot. And now that I've added the sauerkraut, what it does is it makes a much more mellow flavor of the sauce in the stuffed cabbages. You'll love it. And you can do it if I can do it. So here we have 2 of our stuffed cabbages. I like everything sweet, so I put about a tablespoon of sugar or so into the sauce while it's cooking. You can serve them, they're delicious with mashed potatoes. You can also freeze them. They freeze very well. So I hope you enjoyed cooking with Gagee and come back again.